All right, Gary. Welcome to Friday Coffee. What's happening, man?
Not too much, Daniel. Thank you very much. Thanks for your efforts. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm eager to talk best books of 2015.
Yeah, generally speaking, Daniel, what would you say about 2015, literary-wise?
I thought it was good. I thought it was better than the year before because 2014 was the Goldfinch year, right? That was the kind of the big book of the year.
Yes.
And well, first of all, let's define some terms because we may be throwing these out at some point. From now on, quote, pulling a Gary is throwing a book that you've been struggling on for a while down a mine shaft. So if we say pulling a Gary, that's what we mean.
That's fair. Right. Okay, good.
Not that I had that experience with Goldfinch. I'm one of those that didn't hate it as much as other people and didn't love it as much as other people. I thought I was very middle of the road about it. I thought it was worth the read, but not exactly a great book, if that makes sense.
I'm with you.
Yeah. There were some of the New York things, the author totally nailed, and some interactions with different characters. But on the whole, it was like, okay, why? Just why?
Right. Yeah, the Las Vegas thing kind of meandered and turned into this, this 200-page drug adventure. But, yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple of books lurking inside one book. That's how I kind of phrased it. But yeah, what about you? What about 2015 for you?
This was the year, if 2014 was the year of the Goldfinch, this was absolutely the year of Harper Lee. And, to say that this was the year that To Kill a Mockingbird sequel was published.
Yeah.
It's so cataclysmic. It's huge. And with that said, all the kerfuffle surrounding, does Harper Lee have her faculties? What's going on? It made literature, or it made books kind of sexy again, kind of added a TMZ element to the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's good,
I agree. Yeah, it gets people talking.
And I bought Ghost Set of Watchmen the day it came out, and then I walked back to my office with it, and I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. So I haven't read it, but it's there, and it was nice to be a part of that,
Right, yeah. Oh, it's weird, too, because it was technically her first novel, her first draft of To Kill a Mockingbird. And if I look back on the book that I'm writing and look at the first draft, I'm like, oh, my God, I would have to be, insane in a mental institution for someone to publish this under my name. Good Lord. But you're right. It got people talking, and it got people talking about her, and it got people talking about the original. And, a lot of people are upset that they made Atticus Finch, or she made Atticus Finch, more of a racist. But, it's not out of the realm of possibility that his attitude would have changed over time.
Right, exactly. At the very least, it's authentic.
Yes, absolutely. And I read an excerpt of the first chapter, and it read well. It read very well. It read like To Kill a Mockingbird. So, I'm sure if I read the whole thing, I'll have similar thoughts. I just haven't gotten to it yet. So what else have you read this year that you've liked?
I'll start with this, Daniel. There's an old movie theater next to my house, and it's old. It's got a huge velvet curtain. It's got old seats. It stands by itself. It's called the Senator Theater in Baltimore. If anybody ever visits, you definitely have to check it out. But what happens is that it makes any movie you see there an experience.
Ah, okay.
So that becomes part of the experience.
Sure.
So that's a long-winded way of saying one of the greatest reading experiences I had this year, and it's a great book. Would it make any top five? I don't know. It's on my top five in large measure because of the experience. But I read the book was forthcoming, in July, and just the title alone made me gasp. So in anticipation thereof, I read the author's previous two memoirs about addiction, and I think you know where I'm going with this.
I do now, yeah.
I interviewed this guy before Writer's Bone, and just from the minute I read the title to the minute I sent you spectacular book. I loved it because of its merits, but also because of the whole experience. Are you hip to my jive, Daniel?
I am. No, absolutely, yeah. It's one of those books. It's funny because we email back and forth, and you're constantly putting books on my reading list, and that's one of them. That's pretty high up there. Yeah.
And listeners, Daniel has not yet read The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clegg. Okay, so I don't know if we have a special email address that you can send your send email to Daniel, urging him to do so. But there we are. How about you, Daniel?
I like how you're resorting to publicly shaming me to read that book now. I like it. That's a good strategy. Solid strategy.
Yes, it worked for Hester Prynne, right?
There were a bunch, and I've been working on kind of my top 10 list for later on in the month. So I jotted down a few notes on what my top 5 are. I really like The Fisherman, and I'm going to butcher this guy's name, and I apologize, but it's Chigozie Obioma.
Okay.
We'll go with that. It was shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize, which Marlon James's The Brief History of Seven Killings actually won. And I thought The Fisherman was a better book. It's about this group of brothers in Nigeria who are by the lake one day doing just, dumb kid stuff. And this crazy guy who just mills about town being crazy tells them this prophecy that one of them is going to kill the other. And it kind of sets the book's plot in motion. And it is just heart-wrenching because there are moments in the book where you think you've steeled yourself to like, all right, well, I know it's coming, and when it happens, I'm going to be prepared, and I'm not going to freak out, and I'm not going to have this visceral, like, emotional reaction. And then it does, and you're like, holy cow, where did that come from? And you're just weeping. It's probably my number one, to be honest with you. It's certainly up there. Definitely in my top 5.
Hey, could you spell the author's last name, Dave?
Sure, it's Obioma. Excellent read.
Awesome.
Yeah, very good. Very well written, very well paced. The characters are very believable. It got me because it was these. I think it was 4 brothers, if not more. But this group of brothers who were so tight in the beginning and have this very generous and outgoing father, and this very loving family, and just things go horribly wrong. The whole book, and it's just like by the time you're done with it, you're like, oh my god. Yeah, put that one on your list because that one affected me.
And you have brothers, right?
I do, yeah. So it kind of
was that part of it?
Absolutely, definitely hit home for me.
Okay.
Yeah. A couple other ones that I read: "Brutal Youth" by Anthony Breznican.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah, I kind of had he said this publicly that he has a big Stephen King influence, and he's a huge Stephen King fan, and actually got Stephen King to write a blurb, which I think is cool. But just a good, solid read. Weird stuff happens, but at the end of the day, it's about these dopey kids, going to this crazy school with this, kind of insane priest who runs it, and it was entertaining.
Right. And I like that world he made. He did a great job of capturing that world of Catholic schools.
Absolutely.
And I mean, high school is absurd enough as it is. But then you add, the nuns and the gargoyles on the roof and the physicality of the school coupled with all these traditions.
Sure.
And it's he did a great job of capturing that. So, and Pittsburgh is not a book, your friend Michael Chabon, who wrote The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clegg, set a couple books there. But Pittsburgh's an overlooked city.
It is.
It comes to,
it really is.
It was nice to have just a Great Lakes sensibility to the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. Having been in Pittsburgh, I can see why it's overlooked. But that could be my former Big East, rivalry bubbling up here.
Gotcha.
All right. So what else you got?
Daniel, one of the best books I've ever read is a book called Delicious Foods by James Hannaham.
Interesting.
And this one, it's based on a true story. in, he actually never says where it's set, but it's definitely Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, kind of thing. Crack addicted mother and her son are enslaved in a fruit picking farm.
Huh.
And everyone is given crack to sort of keep them complacent, keep them, whatever. And the book starts with this, and I'm not ruining anything here. The book starts with just this daring escape across country, sort of exodus from this farm, and then so you learn what happens, how they got there, the rest of the book. And every other chapter is written from a very unique perspective. And if you haven't read it, I'll let you and the listeners figure it out for themselves. But
cool, yeah.
It's very jarring. It's very jarring to all of a sudden, the shift in perspective thing is, it's something to which we're accustomed. But all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, is this who I think it is? And this guy can do it. He does it well, and it's entertaining. But at the same time, you're in the back of your mind is like, wait a minute, I eat strawberries all the time. I eat this stuff. Am I complacent or am I complicit is the word.
Right.
Am I complicit in this sort of stuff? And there's, the mother-son thing going on. There's, it's just wrenching. So definitely put that on your list too.
I like it. And you're right about the changing perspectives, and I think that's more than a literary trend at this point. I think it's just something that a lot of authors use to not only service a lot of characters, but move plot along at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Daniel? What's next?
All right, so for me, and this is an interesting one. This is kind of out of the box, but it's one of those books that I read on a bus trip to New York and kind of fell in love with. And then I did an interview with her, the author, and she was really cool. It's called The Tusk That Did All the Damage by Tania James. And it's about this elephant who taken into captivity and gets real sad and depressed about it. And she actually, writes from the elephant's perspective, which is kind of interesting. And he escapes and more or less goes on kind of a revenge-filled rampage. And it's kind of a deep dive into the elephant hunting problem and issues like that. But it's got an interesting cast of characters that it includes, of course, the elephant, which is why I think I fell in love with the book.
Why did you like her?
She was just one of those authors that was real approachable, had a really good sense of humor, had really good answers that she gave back to us, and she said publicly on Twitter that she loves her some Writer's Bone. So I got to give her props for that.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, what's next on the list? What do you got?
Next for me was a book called My Sunshine Away.
Oh, yes!
Did you read that?
It is, and I didn't write it down, but I'm glad you brought it up.
I kind of want you to go first, but it's on my list. So.
No. I want it's not on my list right now, but I have other Southern lit writers, so go right ahead.
I love this. Yeah. I thought it was, again, he captures, it reminded me of the Wonder Years.
Yeah, absolutely.
He captured just the confusion and the yearning of a early adolescence.
Yeah.
And just the way things kind of happen too in early adolescence, along with that mid-'80s sort of what's the word? Mid-'80s kind of Reagan years. Video games, BMW kind of world, and then throw in a brutal crime.
Yeah.
And so it's this brilliant hybrid of a coming of age novel coupled with a whodunit, and then you get a lot of that school thing too, which we both liked in the Breznican book. So
absolutely.
I just loved it.
Yeah, I liked his style. I liked his dialogue. There was a crime, but it wasn't so focused on the plot where it took away from the characters. it was more of a character study than anything else, which I liked. And I came away thinking, like, that's the book that I want to write.
Oh,
when I read it.
Yeah.
That's when I put it down, I'm like, that's how I want to write.
I can see that, Daniel. It was, and you know what I liked about this too? It was very sentimental.
Yeah.
He's got the sister, and this book is definitely set in Baton Rouge, which again, I think, if you're going to set a book in Louisiana, you put it in New Orleans, and that's where shit goes down, and Anne Rice is doing all her stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Baton Rouge, a city to which I've never been, kind of is overlooked. But
yeah,
it was very sentimental as far as the whole LSU thing, and
mm-hmm.
It was very cool.
Yeah, and not sentimental in kind of a mushy, kind of weak way. It was just strongly sentimental in a way that resonated with me, and I think with a lot of readers.
Yes, well put.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I really love that book. I read that early in the year, and I remember thinking, wow, this is. I've handed it to people. I think my dad's reading it at the moment. It's just one of those books where you want to pass it on and get it in other people's hands.
Yeah, do you follow him on Twitter?
I do. Yeah, we actually interviewed him, right when the book was coming out.
Oh, okay.
I think I interviewed him right around the same time as we interviewed Paula Hawkins, like right when her book got huge. So we had two big names on the site at the same time.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Damn, I like that book. And actually, it's a good segue to my next two, which I kind of put into one because I hate breaking them up because I've kind of befriended them on Twitter and email. It's Brian Panowich's Bull Mountain and David Joy's Where All the Light Tends to Go. And and if you liked My Sunshine Away, you'll like Bull Mountain because I think Bull Mountain is more in the vein of Elmore Leonard, and it's definitely digs into the characters, but there's more of a thrilling plot element to it, where David Joy's Where All the Light Tends to Go is pure Southern noir poetry. I mean, he said something to the effect, and it's a shame that we lost this interview because of a file corruption, but he said something like, writing this book was as close to writing music as I'll ever get. And it just totally comes out. It's very lyrical, but in a way that just makes you absolutely just grieve and just commiserate and just puts you in a world that you can't help but feel for all the characters and what he puts those characters through. So essentially it's a son who wants to get away from his father's drug business. But of course, finds a way to get back into it, and there's a family element to it where he can't quite let his mother go, and his mother kind of is a bad influence in his life, and there's this girl which he loves, which is actually a positive influence for him, but he can never quite get to where he's going or wants to go. Put it better.
All right. And where is it set, Daniel?
It is set in the South. That's a good question, and they're gonna ridicule me when I come up. But it's one of the Carolinas. I think it's North Carolina. I think he's from North Carolina. But Bull Mountain is set in Georgia. That's right.
Gotcha.
So yeah, All the Light Tends to Go is in North Carolina, and Bull Mountain's in Georgia. Bull Mountain is a fun read, and it's landed on a whole bunch of top 10 lists, which was good to see because they're both really, really, really good guys. All right, you're next.
Next on my list is, oh my gosh. Well, we're going to go from, it's interesting. I tell you all the time I'm on a New York City bender when I read. And generally, it seems like that's generally true. Although nothing on my list so far. Although, did you ever have a family, they talk about this tension between, small town, in Connecticut and, the wealthy visitors that come for the summer from New York. But just an epic story. And this happens in the underbelly is not the right word, but just in the, we'll call it forgotten New York. It's, a returning Iraq war veteran, befriends a Chinese woman, and she's kind of hiding. She's here, illegally, and she's working at the like 14 cents an hour, and they just start just the most beautiful love story you've ever read. And
Wow.
It's just epic in every sense of the word. This book is called Preparation for the Next Life by a man, a Iraq veteran himself, named Atticus Lish.
Oh, great name.
Yeah.
He had to become a writer at some point.
Exactly. Yeah, he had no choice. Right. So it's kind of indescribable. It's just, it's everything. It's just, just all the characters that you wouldn't think have that compelling a story, but he just makes it just this epic, beautiful, compelling romance. And it's, especially in these days, it's just, it's like everyone's got a story, you know, and everyone hurts, everyone, feels, so it was beautiful.
Huh. Well, all right. Well, adding to my list once again. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
Of course. All right, what about you?
All right. The last one of my top 5 here is a book by Dimitri Elias Leger called God Loves Haiti. And I'm a little biased here because one, Dimitri is a St. John's alum.
Okay.
And 2, we had a really good interview while he was in Vienna, which was cool, over Skype. But there's a scene in the book, and it's about the earthquake in Haiti and the kind of the before and the after. And he tells it from the 3 legs of this love triangle. And there's a scene where the young guy who's in love with this woman goes to see her, and they do their thing, and he goes into the closet and he's naked and he's in hiding because he thinks someone's going to walk in on them, and she ends up locking him in the closet. And he takes it from both perspectives, but it's just so great the way he forms his thoughts and what he's thinking and what she's thinking and when she's leaving and when he has this dramatic naked escape. And it just puts into black and white the differences how men and women would handle a situation like that. And it was so interesting in the midst of, it was kind of a very emotional and very heavy topic, but there was this scene where this guy is just locked naked in a hotel room because of a woman, and it's like, of course, because that's absolutely going to happen. I'm sure it happens more often than we think. But it was just great the way he dropped that in there to what was just a crazy situation.
Wow, that sounds cool.
Yeah, and how he deals with the earthquake and how people outside of Haiti react to it and how people inside Haiti react to it was just it was eye opening, and it was just a great read.
Stories set in hotels tend to, it's hotels kind of have this effect, it seems, on characters.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of make them do whatever you want.
Absolutely.
There's no accountability. You're kind of, you're every other component of your identity is gone.
Yeah.
They have an equalizing effect, and you're kind of at your most primal, if you will.
Sure. Yeah, the hotels, dive bars, diners, those are all places where characters can do crazy things and you can completely get away with it because you're like, oh, yeah, it's a diner. Of course this would happen.
Right.
All right, do you have anything else on your list, or are we tapped? Or do you have...
The last one on my list was, and this guy, and he feeds my New York City vendor. A guy named Colin McCann. He wrote Transatlantic as well as Let the Great World Spin, which is one of the best books I've ever read. 13 Ways of Looking.
Yeah, man.
It's a collection of short stories, one novella. The novella is just a great story about, 2 people in New York. It's kind of stereotypical, like the old judge and, his spoiled son. Just great. A different kind of McCann. This was written in the wake of, he was attacked in New Haven. So it's a little more brutal than what he's done. It's clearly, a response to that. But,
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good, very good. Did you read that, Daniel?
I did. I actually just read it a couple weeks ago. Yeah, and I thought the same thing. That it was stereotypical in the novella, but in a way that made me kind of long for New York. Like I kind of knew whereabouts they were, and the way he described the streets and the cold and the snow and how people react to it. It really hit home for me on a lot of levels.
And he did this in Let the Great World Spin too. But you had the wealthy judge and the mahogany, the mahogany bookcases, and then you had this, his Jamaican caretaker, and the way they interacted was so tender and pure and beautiful, and he did that. He does that very well. But I like that aspect of it too.
Yeah, I also like the short story that came after the novella about him writing a story. Well, I'm assuming it's his character writing a story for the New Yorker. And it was kind of illuminating to see how his writing process might actually be in real life. Just the way he started out with having no ideas. And it's like, all right, well, what if I do this? And then, a story comes out of that. And all right, well, what if I put in this element and this element? It kind of was a cool inside baseball look into how he writes or how people in general write.
Yeah, I agree. That was the war one, right?
Yeah. And it ended up being a kind of almost a gripping story. When it ended, I was like, wait, what? You can't just end it. And it was weird how I got wrapped up in this story within a story, knowing at the beginning, oh, this is just coming out of this character's imagination. It didn't really happen.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a cool way to do it. So what's next on your list? What do you got on the nightstand?
Wait, you're next.
Oh, that's my top 5 in some order right there.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have 5 too. I had to change mine. A book called Department of Speculation by a woman named Jenny Awful was published in November 2014. I read it in February 2015, so it was on my list. I don't know how you kind of you strike me as a hard ass Daniel. So for putting a 2014 book on a 2015 list. But that was a great reading experience for me too in 2015.
Right.
It's just it was kind of like a bunch of vignettes about a woman who's and it's New York, it's Brooklyn, it's that world, but of a woman whose marriage is on the cusp of sort of deteriorating.
Interesting.
And it was just stories. So that part of the appeal for that, the appeal of that for me was kind of, just the new technique and the style of it.
I have one more for you if you're interested.
I am.
It's nonfiction though, so I'm going to sneak this one in. Just to prove to you I'm not a hard ass and I can go outside the lines.
All right, try as you might, but go on.
I loved Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari. It was excellent. And me and my girlfriend read it at the same time. It was kind of interesting to see, kind of the perspectives from men and women. But there's some great stats. He's a very good writer. I don't know exactly how much he actually wrote. I'm hoping it was most of it because he worked with another guy. But the other guy was more of a researcher, I think, than a writer. But very, very different themes. Very, very different than your typical celebrity book. And it was very smart. A lot of things you say, oh, that was a smart read. But this book was smart in like a very, specific and good way that I dug.
Right. So, have you watched Master of None?
I have. Yeah.
If I binge watch Master of None, can I still read?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He brings in elements of it. I mean, if you watch the show and read the book, you'll be like, oh, he did this in his book or whatever, and vice versa. You'll think the same thing, but the information's so good, it won't matter.
Okay.
And you will binge watch it, by the way. We tried to kind of pace ourselves, but it's too good. You'll go right through it.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah, he's good. All right, Gary.
All right.
I appreciate it.
No, thank you. This was good.
Hey, whenever you want to come on, it's an open invite.
All right. Thank you. I'll look forward to your complete top 10 list.
All right, man. Don't work too hard.
You neither, Daniel. And we'll talk soon, all right?
Sounds good, buddy.